Welcome back to Stone Age videos from Tag Team Hobbies. This episode is NEO TRN Part 2, where we're going to talk about cleaning up parts of an airbrush, in particular the parts of the NEO TRN1. Okay, before we get into that, let's look at some of the tools that I use for cleaning airbrushes that I've accumulated over the years from a variety of sources. We'll start with these little interdental brushes. These are like the ones that come out of the Iwata cleaning kit that's available on the accessories page at tagteamhobbies.com. They work really good for cleaning out some of the smaller channels inside the airbrush. They're solvent proof, so if you're going to use something harsh like acetone or lacquer thinner, they won't dissolve in there. So you just push them in there and you can scrub out the inside of the channels. But be careful though. They're not so good for cleaning out nozzles because, if you notice, as I'm pushing it into the tapered space between my fingers here, the bristles are getting pushed back and it's exposing the twisted wire core of the brush. And that can scratch up the inside of the nozzle, and where the nozzle gets scratched up, it's going to encourage paint to stick, and then that'll create more problems for you. And that's true of anything that'll scratch up the inside of the airbrush or the outside. Alright, so that's interdental brushes. You can also find these at the grocery store or the drugstore over with the toothpaste and the dental floss. Also out of the Iwata cleaning kit are these pipe cleaners made with non-shredding cotton. So these won't leave little fibers behind that'll clog up your airbrush after you put it back together and start using it. These work good. You can run them through the channels. You can bend them over and increase the diameter of the brush and clean some of the larger channels out. You can bend a crank into it so that you can crank it up to clean out those channels. And these, of course, are also solvent proof. And then also out of the Iwata cleaning kit is the Iwata magnifier. This is also available separately. That can be found on the accessories page at tagteamhobbies.com. And this is great for inspecting the tip of your nozzle and the tip of your needle. So we've got a 30 power lens and a nice bright light, so you can make sure you don't have any cracks or flares or dents in the end of your nozzle. And then if you really want to get close, we have the blue light, and that's much less intense, and you use that with a 60 power lens so you can get a really close look. And the blue light's great because you won't just see a whole field of bright white light. You'll get to see what you're actually trying to look at. You want a magnifier. Some other tools I like to use. This is called a stipple or a stencil brush. You can get this at an art or a craft supply, and don't buy an expensive one because you're probably going to end up trashing it. So you can use this to scrub off the outside of the airbrush, inside the cups, the larger cups. Those work great. Here's a similar device that I got out of a cleaning kit from Spray Gun Solutions. This is like a #1 knife handle that's got the hole cut in the end of it, and a brush that looks a lot like something that Dremel makes. And you can use this for scrubbing off paint and such on the outside of the airbrush. Okay, so we've also got a bamboo cocktail skewer and a toothpick. These are great because the wood is soft. It's softer than the chrome or the brass, so you won't scratch up the airbrush, but it's harder than dried paint. And with a little practice, you can learn to carve the tips of these down so they're just about the size and shape of your needle, so you can gently push that into the nozzle to help you get some of the paint out, some of the accumulated paint. And then the butt of the cocktail skewers works great for knocking stubborn dried paint off the body of the airbrush or out of the inside of the cups. We've also got a plastic toothpick. This one's from Dentec. Great for getting the paint out of the inside of the nozzle. Same problem with the bristles on the back here. And you can clean out some of the smaller channels with this too. These are not solvent proof, so don't use them with lacquer, thinner, or acetone. Then we've got a couple of cotton swabs. Q-tips, of course, or these both came out of the Alpha Abrasives cleaning kit, which has a lot of nice supplies in it, like a whole bag of these, a whole bunch of Q-tips, some toothpicks, and that works great. It's got a lot of good supplies for cleaning out airbrushes. And then something that's been very useful is a set of these micro cleaning brushes, and you can get these in a variety of different places. I've added this big one that came out of the spray gun solution set, and so you can use these for really scrubbing out a lot of the channels inside the airbrushes. So I would suggest putting it in dry, dribbling the cleaner into it, scrubbing it around, and pulling it out that way. Then you don't get cleaner in places that you don't want it, like if you didn't disassemble your air valve. Alright, and that's kind of all the tools that I use for cleaning airbrushes. Oh, there is one more, and that's one of these. This is a high quality paper towel. Dollar store paper towels leave fibers behind, and so I'll take a corner of it and pull that up and twist it into a paper towel point. And so you slip this inside the nozzle dry, dribble cleaner on it, it wicks inside, you twist it the other way, it makes it expand, and that'll clean paint out, and keep doing it until it comes out clean. Now if the nozzle's really packed with paint, this won't help. You'll have to use something like a toothpick, or there's another device that I'll talk about in a second that also works really well, and that's one of these Zuron dispenser bottles. So this is the larger tip of the 3 that are available, and if you get the number 860 bottle, it's got 3 tips in it, and you can take your pick, and this is like a little power washer to clean out the inside of your airbrush. And you can fit this inside the nozzle and just power wash the inside of the nozzle and blow the dried paint right through it. So those are some of the tools that I use. Let's get this out of the way, and let me talk now about a cleaning solution. And lately I've been using this stuff called LA's Totally Awesome. That's this right here, LA's Totally Awesome. It is citrus based, it's non-toxic, it's non-flammable, so this works really good. It's a surfactant, so what it's going to do is get underneath the paint and it'll come off in big chunks. And I find that a lot more satisfying and a lot more effective than repeated wipe downs with a solvent-based cleaner. And it goes great inside one of the cleaning bottles. Alright, so let's talk about all these parts I got here and what we're going to do with them. Now the nice thing about the Totally Awesome is it's fine with all these neoprene O-rings. And there's a little one right at the end of the nozzle here. We've got 2 on the body of the air valve, 1 on the air valve itself. And one thing I didn't mention when I took this airbrush apart is there's still an O-ring inside this channel where the air valve goes. And it sits inside a little cavity, so it's kind of difficult to get out. And since I'm not using any solvents on this, and certainly not, soaking this in solvents, I can go ahead and use the Totally Awesome and leave it in place and get that all cleaned up on both sides. I can use some of these cotton swabs out of the Alpha Abrasives kit and put some cleaner on it and scrub all this junk out of the inside. Oh, look, it's already starting to come off and it's not even wet. So this is going to be like a brand new airbrush. So what I'll do is anything that needs cleaning, I've got some containers that I use to soak things in, maybe 30 minutes. Now there are a couple of things, that reminds me there's a couple of things about the Totally Awesome. If you are working in an open container and you have an airbrush part stuck in there with part of the airbrush part sticking up out of the water, if you leave it in too long, like overnight or even longer than that, the water starts to evaporate, and the Totally Awesome will make this film where the surface of the liquid is, as it evaporates, it's really hard to get off of the metal. So it's best not to leave things soaking for more than maybe 30 minutes. And sometimes even less than that is more than enough. And the other thing about Totally Awesome is that for prolonged soaking, that's like a couple hours, it's going to blacken the brass parts. they'll still work just fine. They'll just be black in color, and you can rub that off with a little baking soda if you need to. So I'm going to start dropping parts in here because we're going to soak those. Usually I keep another container with just water in it and use that to rinse off the parts and then dry them. This is a little cup that comes in the Alpha Abrasives cleaning kit, and it's great for putting little bits in because then they don't go too far away. You don't have to worry much about losing them. And then just to be really on the safe side, I'll pour this out into a little strainer so I don't lose anything. Because it's real easy to forget you got a nozzle in something like this, and then you pour a customer's nozzle down the drain and you buy them a new one. So yeah. So we'll put some of these parts into soak. I'll get after it with the brushes and the swabs and the paper towels. And once everything's all soaked up and cleaned off and rinsed off, we're going to come back and put the airbrush together. So thanks very much again to Kirk Liebecker, the tech guru at Iwata Medea, and Mr. Joe Leos, a valued customer of Tag Team Hobbies. So thanks again from Tag Team Hobbies. Happy painting.